A lot of people are watching local elections as Trump visibly slows down, losing the thread mid-sentence, repeating himself more than usual, drifting, falling asleep, and they're starting to look past him, thinking, hoping, wishfully, that maybe the end is, nigh, asking what comes next. It's a dangerous question, folks. Hey, I'm Tad Sturmer. I'm an American scholar of resistance history at the University of Southern Denmark and the author of A Resistance History of the United States. Almost no one has seriously asked the question of what comes next. Almost. Not the way the folks on the other side have. And so has resistance history. If nothing else, resistance has to be clear-eyed about what's happening and what's to come. Because JD Vance is right there, waiting, watching. Younger, more disciplined, far more ideologically committed than Trump ever was. Or maybe just more cynical. Trump stumbled into authoritarian instincts. For him, it's all ego and what serves it. Vance studies authoritarian instincts. He wrote a book trashing the people he now claims to champion, and then he reinvented himself when he saw which way the wind was blowing. He called Trump America's Hitler in 2016 and then became his running mate. And that makes him more dangerous, not less. Trump is a vehicle. Vance is a driver. And unlike Trump, Vance doesn't need to be flattered into signing things he hasn't read. Vance has read them. He's writing the forewords to them. Project 2025 didn't need Trump to believe in it. They just needed him to sign it. Vance believes in it. He's not a populist cosplaying as an authoritarian. He's an authoritarian who learned to cosplay as a populist. So when people tell you the end of Trump is the end of the crisis, just stop them and ask them, what's the plan for Vance? More to the point, what is the plan for the movement that made him, that sustains them? For the infrastructure that's already in place and is not going anywhere? Resistance history teaches us that movements defined only by what they oppose rarely survive the removal of that opposition. They dissolve, they get absorbed, they fracture, or worse, they win, in a sense, and then watch everything they fought against just reconstitute itself because they never addressed the conditions that produced it in the first place. Here is a resistance principle. Don't just stop the abuse of authority. Make sure it never comes back, and then build something better. And that requires answering some hard questions. What's the plan? To just not be them and all better. To restore what was there before based upon everything they have already demolished. To rebuild, to move on. These are not the same things. And right now, the Democratic Party and much of what passes for the broader opposition has articulated nothing beyond, we're not them. They're simply the alternative, the other option, the only other option, which must be better because it's just not as awful. That's not resistance, that's relief. And you better get really good at telling the difference. And here's a test to help. It's a simple one. Apply it to anyone claiming to lead an opposition. What's next? Now, what do we do about Trump? What do we do about what created Trump? What sustains Trump? What makes that movement beyond Trump possible? What's already lined up to replace Trump? Do they think Trump's 77 million voters just disappeared? Do they think the haters of non-white people, the supporters of ICE, the promoters of punching down on Caribbean boaters in Greenland, do they think that they just go away? Do they think the Republicans who follow Mike Johnson in the House just evaporate? Do they think the centrists in the Democratic Party, the Tim Kaines of the world, the people whose entire political identity is putting on the brakes, suddenly become progressive? They muster the political will to restore all of the funding and all of the governmental infrastructure that has been erased? Do they think the federal judiciary, packed since 2016 and stacking up through 2028, just goes away? Especially if those judges see themselves as the bastion against a liberal restoration. Do they think the people who invested everything in MAGA and Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, the tech bros, just retire, pack it in, they shut down their podcasts? They call it a day because one old orange man finally lost his grip? Because if so, that's insane. It's not a plan, it's a fantasy. And is Gavin Newsom really the guy to take that on? A man whose entire political brand is managing decline while managing his hair? Who governed California as a creature of the same donor class that's underwritten the Democratic Party's studied mediocrity for a generation? You think he's going to out-vision, out-organize, and out-fight the folks who ran straight from an outright insurrection to a legit win in 2024 because he has good social media people? For resistance history, the Reconstruction era should haunt every American who thinks removing the immediate threat solves the problem. The traders were defeated, slavery was abolished, and within a decade, white supremacist power had reconsolidated under different names, different mechanisms, same outcomes. Why? Because most folks in the North never committed to a vision of what the country should become. They never really agreed on it. They committed only to what it shouldn't continue being, and it just wasn't enough. Some folks did think about that. They were already there in the 1840s and 1850s, saying it would never be enough to just end slavery. America itself would have to be remade. Those founding principles had to stop being abstractions that could apply to anybody and finally be put into concrete action that applied to everybody. Stopping oppression is one thing. Making sure it doesn't come back is another. And achieving some measure of justice, that's still yet another. That spirit drove many of the radical Republicans. They understood that you don't win by returning to what was. You win by making the return of the old order impossible. The radicals pushed for the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, not just vague words, but hard rules to ensure equality, rights, fairness. What too many people assigned to the Patriots of 1776, the radicals of 1866 actually got done. They fought for land distribution for free black people. They insisted on black political participation, not as charity, but as justice. They understood that Reconstruction was a misnomer. It wasn't about rebuilding anything. It was about building something new. And they were called radicals as an insult, and they were it anyway. And they lost. We can talk about that eventually. Not because they were wrong, but because they were abandoned by moderates who wanted peace more than justice, by a northern public that lost interest, and by an establishment that decided reconciliation with white supremacy was easier than confronting it. Sound familiar? Resistance against is actually the easy part. Push back against abusive authority. Fine. But replace it with what? With what vision? With what values? More of the same? The same system that produced all this. America has been revealed. Everyone saw it. Everyone sees it. The post-World War II order is gone. Authoritarians around the world now know there is no accountability. So now what? Stay the course or change the destiny? That's not a rhetorical question, folks. It requires an actual answer. And not Trump isn't one. Especially when Trump isn't even the real problem. The social compact framework I work with makes this clear. When authority becomes abusive, the people have the right and the responsibility to resist. But resistance isn't just about breaking the old compact, it's about establishing a new one. And if you can't answer on what terms, you're not leading a resistance. You're just waiting for the crisis to pass so that you can go back to normal, and normal is what got us here. Norms are what got us here. Be a radical Republican. Not in the partisan sense. Forget about the Republican. In the historical sense, be a radical. Push for the vision. Demand transformation, not restoration. Insist that the question isn't how do we get back to 2015, but how do we build something that makes 2025 impossible? Apply the test to every candidate, to every supposed leader, to every pundit telling you to calm down. Ask them, what's the plan for JD Vance? What's the plan for the next one after him? What's the vision that makes the return of this impossible? If they can't answer, they're not the leader you need. The choice isn't between Trump and before Trump, it's between transformation or repetition. Because resistance is for something, or it's for nothing. LLC.